And before I forget, there will be a quiz over 1-1 through 1-3 tomorrow. Okay. So 1-3 will be due tomorrow night at midnight, but I'd recommend you do it tonight, just so that you understand the material for the quiz. Okay. And before I get too far, did you both, you already talked to me, do 1-2 already? You did 1-2?
It's almost done.
Like,
8 problems.
okay. Because I don't know if it's because he deleted everybody, if it saved. Did you do 1-2 already?
I was really close to being done. Well, I'll have to start over.
Actually, yours you shouldn't, because your name wasn't deleted. Yours was the only one.
Okay.
But the other two were.
I think
I'm almost done with it. That's all.
Does it still have
mine
your...
says resume.
It does?
Yeah, I clicked on the, because there's 2, so I
Okay.
just clicked on the top one.
Good. And it resumed?
Mhm.
Nice. Good. Okay. So we're going to talk about angles in this section. And an angle is created by the intersection of two rays. And the rays intersect at their starting point. Okay, so like if I have ray AB and I connect it with the same starting point to ray AC, I've created an angle. Okay, and the way we name angles is we always use 3 letters, or you could call this angle A. It's always called by its vertex. Okay, the 3 letters I use, the middle letter always has to be the vertex. Okay, I could also call this angle BAC. It's the same thing. Or I could call it angle A. Okay, now if I have 2 angles, you see how I have 2 angles at angle A? If I call that by just a single letter, angle A, I don't know which angle you're talking about. So anytime you have a vertex that has 2 angles at the vertex or more, you always just have to use the 3 letters. You can't just call it by a single letter, because you'll never know which angle you're talking about if you just call it by the single letter. Does that make sense?
So you call it angle CAD.
Yeah, if this was D, yeah, I'd CAD or DAC. But it would never be ADC. A is always, in this case, the vertex. It's always the middle letter. Okay? There are 3 kinds of angles. There's right angles, and when you have a right angle, you're going to see this box in the corner, and it means that angle is 90 degrees. It always will mean that. Okay, there's going to be a lot of times in this class that I'll tell you never assume anything unless they tell you. Okay, so if you're given this square in the corner, you can assume it is 90 degrees. They are telling you it's 90 degrees with that square. If you're on the ACT and you have a figure like this with no square, you cannot assume it's 90, even if it looks 90 to you. Okay, the only way you can assume is if they put the box in there or they tell you that angle is 90 degrees. Or they tell you this ray is perpendicular to this one, then you know it's 90. Okay? All right, so we have 90-degree angles, and then we have angles that are greater than 90, and those are called what? Obtuse. And then we have angles that are less than 90, and those are called what? Acute. Okay, so acute angles are less than 90, obtuse angles are greater than 90, and right angles are exactly 90. Those are the 3 kinds of angles. Okay. Something else that you'll find, let's go back to this one. If you ever see markings like this with these little arcs, that tells you those 2 angles are congruent, which means they have equal measure. They're congruent. Okay? If they tell you this angle is 90, then you know this angle is 90 because they made a straight line and they tell you that it's congruent. Okay? If they tell you this angle is 45 and they put this little line there, that angle is 45. They don't have to tell you anymore, they can just mark it. Sometimes you'll see kind of complicated figures, maybe something like this, where you see double. That just tells you they couldn't use the same single mark because then you'd be assuming all 4 of these angles were equal. So they use 2 marks to tell you these 2 are equal to each other and these 2 are still equal to each other, but they're not all 4 equal. Okay, so they start looking really confusing, but if you just look at the marks and match up which one has a double, I know those 2 are equal. you'll be fine.
Question.
Mhm.
When you start a problem on big, like, does it like erase it all if you exit out of it on just that one problem?
I don't know. You'll have to tell me after you do it. Okay, the other thing we deal with is something called a protractor, which is this. And in the textbook, there was a link that you could have clicked on to a website called Math is Fun and kind of played around with the protractor, figure out how to use it. The outside of the protractor, in this case, it starts at 0 and it goes to 180 because it's a straight line, and the measure of a straight line is 180 degrees. Okay, the inside starts on the other side at 0 and goes to 180 on the other side. So a lot of times when you're measuring angles, you'll try and match one of the sides of the angle up with 0, and then you can go from 0 to wherever the ray intersects the other side and measure it that way. If you, I think Big Ideas, they match it up to something that's non-zero. So just pick, if you've got an angle like this going through, pick the bigger angle minus the smaller angle, and you'll get the angle
My projector
measure.
has like a bar in the middle where the line is,
Mhm.
and you can move it to which side.
That's cool. Yep, but that's a protractor, and you'll have a problem or two in Big Ideas using this, but digitally. If you did not go to that website when you were reading the textbook, you might try it, and then you can play with it a little bit. Then the final thing in this section that you need to know is something called the angle addition postulate. Let's call that A. Okay, so I have two angles that together make a big angle. Do you see that? So there are really three angles here. The angle addition postulate says the angle BAC plus the angle CAD is equal to the angle BAD. This angle plus this angle equals the whole. Okay, so if you get a drawing like this, and they tell you angle BAD equals 73 degrees, and they want you to solve for either the x or the angle, it's just like the segment addition postulate we did yesterday. If they don't give you a figure, I would recommend you draw a figure so that all the letters make sense to you. You can see where they are. If you have a figure like I do, then write out the segment addition postulate and just substitute in what you know. So over here, I know that angle BAC is 7x plus 3. And I know angle CAD is 2x minus 7. And I know the whole angle is 73. So I can get over. So now I have my equation. Okay? And if they ask me for x, I can just solve this for x. If they ask me for the actual angle, then I have to take that value of x and plug it in for x here and solve to get the angle. Take that value of x, plug it in here, and solve and get the angle. It's just like segment addition. But I would encourage you to draw it out so that it's really clear. I can't visualize it from a paragraph without a drawing. If I can't do that, then I'm sure that you shouldn't be able to do that. If you can, then you're like really smart. You can really visualize things well. I need it drawn so I can really see it. Okay, so if they don't give you a figure, then make your own. Okay, let's go through the textbook check real quick. Make sure I covered everything. So when naming an angle with three letters, the letter representing the vertex is always the middle letter. True. Match the definition to the correct word. When two rays have the same endpoint, it's called an angle. The common endpoint of the two rays that form an angle is called the vertex. The common point where both rays come in together. And then two rays that form an angle are called the sides of the angle. The sides. Okay? An angle that measures 100 degrees is considered an obtuse angle because it's greater than 90. When you went to the Math is Fun website and practiced measuring angles, what key did you use to rotate the protractor? You remember? I think that was the plus or minus keys. I can't remember.
I thought it was arrow keys.
Oh, arrow keys then. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been a while since I was on there. Did you get it right?
I don't know, I can check. There's
It's
arrows.
like arrows.
Arrows, okay? And then finally, true or false, a shortened name for angle X, U, Y is angle U. That's false because there's two angles at that vertex. If I call it angle U, I'm not clear as to which angle you're talking about. It could be XUY, it could be YUZ. I don't know which. So you can never call an angle by a single letter if more than one angle is at that vertex.
So you have to call it.
3 letters. Yep. So that would be false. Okay? All right, so go ahead and get working on CK12. Remember, if you do CK12 and your classroom problems on time for the quarter, I will replace your lowest quiz grade with your homework grade.
So the.
And 1.2 is due tonight, right?
Yes.
And the classroom problem?
Yeah, so CK12 and classroom problems for 1.2 are due tonight at midnight, and for 1.3 are due tomorrow at midnight. But you do have a quiz over both tomorrow.